Long before the sun came crawling up the Texas sky, Joe was stoking up the fire while the stars were still up high. Coffee in the blackened pot, bacon in the pan, biscuits in the Dutch oven. Joe was feeding every man. While the cowboys saddled horses, Joe was hitching up his team. He'd be halfway down the trail before the herd was in his dream. He knew where the water ran, where the cottonwoods would grow, and every cowboy on that drive depended on old Joe. They called him Chuck Wagon Joe, the man behind the ride. He kept the coffee hot and the fire burning bright. When the cattle stretched for miles, he could cook us doctor men and settle any fight that came around. When you were tired and hungry and your saddle sore, Joe made the trail feel like home again. He'd find a little creek bed where the horses could be watered, set the wagon underneath the trees and get the supper started. While the herd was still a-comin', he'd be working on the beans, cut the biscuits, fry the meat, and holler at the team. Then a cowboy came in bleeding where the wire had caught his arm. Joe just shook his head and said, "Well, son, sit down, I'll do you no harm." He wrapped it up and handed him a cup of coffee black as coal. Said, "You boys can push those cattle, I'll take care of your bodies." They called him Chuck Wagon Joe, the man behind the ride. He kept the coffee hot and the fire burning bright. When the cattle stretched for miles, he could cook us doctor men and settle any fight that came around. When you were tired and hungry and your saddle sore, Joe made the trail feel like home again. One night a greenhorn cowboy sat alone beside the fire. His first long cattle drive had taken more than he'd expected to survive. He said, "Joe, I don't know if I'm cut out for this." Joe handed him a biscuit and said, "Son, you ain't quit yet. Every cowboy gets worn down, every horse gets tired, and every man out on this trail has wondered if he's able. But morning comes, the coffee's hot, and cattle still gotta go. So eat that biscuit, get some sleep, tomorrow we'll both know." He wasn't much for bragging, and he never asked for praise, but he knew every cowboy's name and every horse he fed for days. He'd curse you when you stole his coffee, then save you the last piece of pie. And if you ever rode off hungry, well, you weren't riding by Joe's fire tonight. Years rolled by and cattle drives became a memory, but the cowboy still remembered that old wagon by the trees. They remembered Joe before the dawn, his coffee and his grin, the way he'd say, "Get your britches on, boys, the trail starts again." He never wore a silver buckle, never rode beneath the lights, but he carried tired cowboys through 1,000 dusty miles. And when the story's told of men who helped the old West grow, somebody always raised a cup and said, "Here's to Chuck Wagon Joe." They called him Chuck Wagon Joe, the man behind the ride. kept the coffee hot and the fire burning bright. When the cattle stretched for miles, he could cook us doctor men and settle any fight that came around. When you were tired and hungry and your saddle sore, Joe made the trail feel like home again. Yeah, the cattle may have made the money and the cowboys got the fame, but every trail boss knew the truth when he called old Joe's name. Get that wagon rolling, Cookie, we'll see you down the line. And Chuck Wagon Joe would tip his hat, coffee'll be ready on time.